Alright, the next thing we have to talk about in depth is the rights for the colonists. And I'll tell you right now, this is probably the most important flipped video of this chapter because this content is going to directly relate to the reason that the colonists started a revolution and broke away from England. So this is super important. Out of the 16 multiple choice questions that we have for our end of the unit assessment, 8 of the questions will come from this flipped video. So please make sure you are paying attention, taking notes, and answering the questions correctly. Alright, the first thing we have to understand about the colonists is they saw themselves as English citizens. They did not see themselves as part of another country. They saw themselves as belonging to England and that they were English. Therefore, they expected the same exact rights as the people in England had. They didn't want to be treated any different. So there is a history that I will go through of actually the English citizens and the people of England kind of getting more power. Kind of way back when the king and the queen, they were the ones that had most of the power. And eventually the English citizens gained some of this power. Therefore, the king did not have all the power that you would expect during the colonial times. The first step in kind of gaining these rights for English citizens was the development of the Magna Carta. And remember the years here because you're going to have to know the chronological order of certain things. So the Magna Carta was created in 1215. What this really did is this limited the power of the king. So the king didn't have all the say, and his power was limited. Therefore, not even the king was above the law with the development of the Magna Carta. The next step in kind of gaining these rights was the creation of what was called Parliament. And this was created in 1265. Parliament was made up of representatives across England. Kind of like our House of Representatives and our Senate is today, we have people from each state that represent our populations in our government. This is kind of the same idea. Anyways, Parliament, they had the power to approve laws and taxes proposed by the king. So the king would propose a law or a tax that he wanted for the English citizens, and the representatives or Parliament of England would get together and they would vote if that law or tax was going to be approved or if it was going to be denied. A very important kind of step in this whole thing was what was called the Glorious Revolution. And the Glorious Revolution kind of let English citizens know that their rights were important and they had to be followed by a king. So James, the Duke of York, and we have learned a little bit about this, he was actually kind of the owner of the New York colony. He actually became King James II. And King James II didn't really want to rule with Parliament in place. He wanted to rule like they did before the Magna Carta. He wanted to make all the rules. He wanted to make all the taxes. And when he tried to rule without Parliament, he was actually forced off his throne. So he was not obeying the Magna Carta. He was not obeying the laws of Parliament, and he was actually thrown off his throne. And this was a really good sign for English citizens, knowing that they, as citizens, had a right in their government and no one was going to rule over them anymore. After the Glorious Revolution, England needed a king. Therefore, the Parliament wanted Prince William of Orange to be the next king. But before they did that, and before he could become the next king, they made him sign the English Bill of Rights. And this was actually created in 1689. The Glorious Revolution had been 4 years before that in 1685. So, to become king, Prince William signed this English Bill of Rights. Well, the English Bill of Rights now gave the power to make laws and impose taxes. It gave that power to the people's elective representatives. It gave that power to Parliament. Instead of the king saying, this is going to be the new tax, or this is going to be the new law in Parliament approving that. They actually created the law and voted on the laws themselves. So this gave a lot more power to Parliament and the citizens of England. The English Bill of Rights, it also included a list of rights that the English citizens had. This is going to be very similar to the Bill of Rights, which we will learn about, and it actually is, the English Bill of Rights is the basis for why we created our Bill of Rights. So this Bill of Rights, it included the rights that citizens had. One of the rights included the right to petition the king. Another right included the right to a trial by jury. This English Bill of Rights was super important for the colonists because it let them know what was due of them as English citizens. It really let them know what their responsibilities as citizens were, and what they needed to do and what rights they had as English citizens. Now, each city in the colonies had its own kind of colonial assembly. You can think of this as a local government, almost a city council. And these colonial assemblies, what they got together and what they decided upon was the crime and punishments for its local communities and cities. So they passed laws defining crime and punishment. Overall, the crime and punishment from city to city was fairly similar, but there were differences that you had to abide by. So they made serious crimes actually punishable by death. Other fairly serious crimes included branding and whipping. These were kind of very brutal punishments that they voted upon. Smaller crimes resulted in fines and even public humiliation. But still, these laws, as we're going to learn about and read a little further, they centered around religion and the core values of pretty much Christianity. And that's what the colonies are going to follow for their laws, crimes, and punishment.